It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I am biased, but I never think you can have too many Siobhans in one room. So it's great to be here, and thank you to everyone for joining us so early on a Wednesday. This debate really matters to my constituents and local businesses. They are environmentally focused and trying to do the right thing by our planet and for our children and grandchildren, but planning barriers and delays are holding back the renewable potential of the Stroud District and the UK. It's taking years to deliver projects, and that's big projects and little projects alike, and it's not good enough for all of our constituents who really want to see progress here. Now, we know that renewable energy sources as well as critical transmission infrastructure such as grid connections are vital for the UK to reach net zero by 2050 and decarbonise the power sector by 2035. I have argued for years now that technological innovation is going to provide the solutions that help the UK beat our 2050 target. There are also countless businesses in the Stroud District who really show me that they are going to achieve this because they're leading the way nationally and internationally. It's also our businesses that are going to win the climate battle. It's not going to be gluing myself to things or sitting on roads. It's not going to be getting arrested or stopping people getting to work or going to hospital appointments. I'm not going to spend my time being a permanent protester or refusing to recognise where the UK is doing well just for a political agenda. I want to find practical solutions, and I'm going to get things done using this place in any way I can. The development of renewables should clearly continue at pace while we transition from oil and gas. The state and the local government should protect residents where necessary, but they have to get out of the way wherever possible. And without the taxpayer, which is all of our constituents and everyone in this room, subsidising eco-businesses up the wazoo. Now, on planning barriers on a local basis, we find that planning issues, even in virtue signalling councils who have declared a climate emergency, are causing difficulties for local people. By way of an example, I really need clever civil servants and the excellent minister to help me with issues relating to solar tracking. A local company called B Solar Technology contacted me about this many years ago. It's run by a female entrepreneur who, to be frank, gives me a really hard time because she's really fed up with some of the problems. But even in giving me a hard time, she impresses me every day with her knowledge and her desire to make things better for everybody. Now, solar tracking systems rotate and follow the sun all day from sunrise to sunset. This obviously enables them to generate more power than a static roof or ground-mounted systems. In simple terms, 6 panels tracking the sun equal approximately 10 panels of static roof system. You need fewer panels, and as it's ground-mounted and freestanding, you can do things like clean the panels easily to ensure that you're getting maximum bang for your buck. You can generate direct current electricity from sunlight, even on cloudier days, and you can take the device with you if you move. This works for small homes and big posh homes and can heat a swimming pool or a summer house, but it can also heat a little office down at the bottom of the garden. Now, when we talk about solar, we tend to talk about roof panels, and actually all the drama is in the massive solar farms, which I'll come on to later. But I don't think people are well aware of the technology coming through, and the local planning departments and councils are certainly not. And I'm not criticising roof panels, as you will see later. I believe they have a vital role to play, particularly against the big solar farms. But everybody I explain solar tracking to thinks it's a really good idea. And indeed, B Solar gets lots of inquiries and they've won awards. Yet they've found that planners don't want to engage or learn properly about new technology. And I think that's a mixture of being very busy in their jobs, caution and laziness. I will do, thank you.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. And I think the speech that she is giving is really giving light to this subject and really helping edify those of us here about solar technology and how that's moving on. On the point, though, about local authorities, I've been approached by the Blackdown Hills Parishes Network, a network of councils in my area that represent the Blackdown Hills AOMB. And they suggest that the problem might not be so much local authority planners as the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, that planners have to work in accordance with. Specifically, that it fails to give sufficient emphasis to the climate emergency ecological decline, and the principle of leaving the environment in a better state than it was when we inherited it. Does she agree?
Siobhan Bailey.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I think this is part of the problem. Now, I love parish councils, and they're often the ones that are following the real detail of planning applications and having the battles on a day-to-day basis. But what he is proposing sounded to me like more kind of statements, and it sounds very worthy and important, but actually what we want is the mechanisms. And at the moment, we've got local authorities are blaming the government is saying local authorities have the power, and local people are caught in the middle. So I'm really happy to work with him to look at that on the MPPF. And we know that we are getting new draft, and I think it's been too slow, and we need that information coming forward soon. But what I'm wanting to avoid is any more kind of well-meaning rhetoric and actually get to the bottom of how we get some of these projects over the line. So I think that is really important. And on just going back to solar tracking, planning applications are getting rejected, and few people can afford to pay for a expensive planning consultant, and they obviously do not want to engage in local long-standing appeals. The government planning portal on solar planning regulations make no reference to solar tracking systems because the technology was not available when the regs were published. Myself and Melissa Briggs from B Solar have done our best to raise awareness. We've written to endless numbers of ministers and secretaries of state, even before I became the Member of Parliament for Stroud. The current position is as follows. The installation of solar panels and equipment on residential buildings and land may be permitted development with no need to apply to the local planning authority for planning permission. At that point, you think, woohoo, we can get there. But then it goes on. There are, however, important limits and conditions detailed on the following pages which must be met to benefit from these permitted development rights. And the list is long. The conditions set out are not too problematic, but it's the statement that all of the following limits must be met. So I'll give you some examples. Number one, no part of the installation should be higher than 4 metres. Why? Nobody can explain a 4-metre rule. It seems pretty arbitrary. The B solar systems are 4.3 metres when they're at their most vertical, but just under 4 metres for most of the day. Yet, so what difference does it make if it's in someone's private garden or business space, whether it's 4 metres or 4.3 metres, and we've already established that it's acceptable on the amenity of the area. I asked the Minister, can this be made at least 5 metres or have no restriction at all unless there's a serious visual issue? The second one, the installation should be at least 5 metres from the boundary of the property. Again, why? This is precluding people with smaller gardens, narrow gardens and smaller homes being able to install renewable technology. Should only people with huge personal land be permitted to benefit from new renewable technologies? So I asked the Minister, can this be reduced to 2.5 metres, albeit at the discretion of councils, depending on the circumstances? The third one, final one on these points, the size of the array should be no more than 9 square metres or 3 metres wide by 3 metres depth. Why? Where's the 9 metres come from? Solar panels have grown since this legislation was published in 2011. They were about 200 watts then, and now about 400 watts and upward of 500 watts are becoming commonplace. So can the requirement be removed or adapted to at least 15 square metres, or is there another way through? I need the Minister and the Department to answer the above questions because I am banging my head against a brick wall, and I'd like them to look closely at whether it's the local authorities already have the powers, even though some of them don't think they have, to grant the permission for these things, or whether we need to change the regulations up here, because if that is the case, then I will work night and day with the Minister to make that happen. Now, while I've highlighted this specific technology of solar tracking, the realities of what I've just explained applies to other issues with renewables. And it's often that the planning systems or the planners and the councils, and I sound like I'm giving local authorities a hard time, but they are at the coalface of local people's applications and inquiries. But they just don't seem to reflect the up-to-date world that we live in, and planners are blaming the government. So it goes round in a big circle. So without clarity, local people cannot face battling with planning authorities and do not have the resources to engage experts. They're going to give up, and who can blame them in some circumstances? Another organisation called the Big Solar Co-op, and I give thanks to them and Maria Ardley, who is the Stroud coordinator. She set out a number of issues that they are facing trying to get solar onto commercial rooftops, something that I think we can all agree is a good thing to do. Now, the BSC is a national community energy organisation aiming to unlock the huge potential of rooftop solar for cutting carbon emissions. Its target is to install 100 megawatts by 2030, which is equivalent to the energy used by about 30,000 homes. The Stroud team have a target of 400 kilowatts of rooftop solar energy within the first year, and that's about 8 tennis courts worth of roof space. But they're coming up with some real big problems that they hadn't really appreciated would be there, particularly with an area that is so environmentally focused and a council that is so committed to the climate emergency. Now, there are also plenty of large rooftops in our area that could host solar panels. As a non-profit group, the Big Solar Co-op is pretty attractive for building managers and business owners because there's no capital cost. The financial and carbon savings to be made are also important for head, heart and planet, but as I said, the planning barriers are holding them back. Now, Maria has explained to me that what would make things easier for BSC in Stroud and nationally is if there was a presumption in favour of rooftop solar, like Kensington and Chelsea Council has already done. This allows for well-designed, aesthetically responsible arrays to be professionally designed and installed even on listed buildings, and that could make a huge difference. I also have a lot of time for CPRE as a charity. The Gloucestershire CPRE work incredibly hard to scrutinise planning applications that affect the countryside and nature, and no doubt, as my honourable friend will say, they have a lot to say about the MPPF needing to be updated. I note that their position in response to wide concerns about solar farms is to reiterate their commitment to rooftop solar policies. Similarly, Heritage England have released guidance on how to install solar in a way that's sensitive and respectful to the building in question, so not scaling out listed buildings. At the moment, the BSC are working on a fabulous building called the Speech House Hotel in the Forest of Dean. I have permission from the Member of Parliament, the Right Honourable Mark Harper MP, and his team have been contacted about this very recently, so they will be working through the issues too. Due to the rules on curtilage, the owners of the Speech House Hotel and BSC have to go through full planning application and hire a planning consultant. This is costly and not something that can be done each time for a not-for-profit organisation. If the rules are not changed, BSC may have to rule out listed buildings when they're exactly the properties that we need to help. Jill, the owner of the Speech House Hotel, said, "We're particularly keen to reduce our carbon footprint as quickly as possible, as well as having the need to reduce our overall energy costs. The hotel uses a great amount of electricity daily to provide services that our customers need and want. These costs have more than doubled over the last 12 months. As a major employer in the Forest of Dean, not only do we need we want to be sustainable, but also we need to be able to control our costs and maintain employment and levels of business. This is a sensible, conscientious employer who is struggling to make progress with a brilliant organisation in BSC who are raring to help, but I'm informed that the Forest of Dean planners just didn't engage. They didn't inform BSC about the visit to the property, and they've not been able to discuss the matter with them. Finding it difficult to engage with planners is something that's been reported to me about Stroud and other councils too. I'd be grateful to know the Minister's response to the issues raised about applying rooftop solar to commercial buildings and address issues relating to listed buildings. And will ministers move to replicate what councils like Kensington and Chelsea are doing, or save from our mini dispatch box room, you don't have a dispatch box, your place in this room, why councils or whether councils can actually just follow and do this unilaterally right now, because I think that would be helpful. Then we can send that to all councils. Now, on solar farms, I really appreciate my colleagues' indulgence on this. So on solar farms, now quite a few constituents, I have a rural area, they've contacted me about the rise of solar farms in the last few years. They are concerned that it's ruining our countryside with little thought for food security or the future of farming. A meeting with the hard-working Ham and Stone Parish Council last week brought home the pressures that our small rural villages and communities are under from the developments of massive solar farms. Stroud District Council granted permission for a large solar farm at World's End Farm against the advice of the Parish Council and against the advice of Highways. At a similar time, the neighbouring South Gloucestershire Council passed another massive solar farm, which will effectively join up and create a huge loss of green space. The practical consequences for residents now, post-permission, they're trying to work out how the delivery of hundreds of solar panels will work in rural country lanes, past a primary school and over a very weak bridge. And I've met a few local families who are really devastated by this planning decision. Local people are worried about climate change and care about the environment, but they feel under siege. Arlingham Village fought long and hard against a huge solar farm over there. Long-standing relationships were broken and there was a very upsetting loss for one family in that case. A local council also told me that during the Arlingham case it was established that Stroud District Council had already met their own renewable targets, energy targets, so local people are perplexed that the Green-led council are approving planning applications that are wrong for small areas. And I do think this issue has just become entirely confused and quite worrying. I have a good friend and constituent that runs a business that, and I trust him to provide me with sensible, constructive information about solar farms. Now, they spend a lot of time consulting with local people and making sure that if they're going to apply for a solar farm, that it will work for the local community. And he sets out that effectively the total UK land currently covered by solar panels today is 0.1%, therefore under 0.2% of agricultural land. Yet that is not how many of our communities feel. They feel that they are coming, they are here, and there's going to be more coming, and government hasn't quite got onto the issue. I will do. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for giving way and congratulate her on what is very definitely a timely debate. Would you agree with me the issue that she's raising now about consultation as far in advance as possible of proposals or propositions is essential, because local people, whether they be businesses or neighbours, need to understand completely what it is coming so that they can accommodate it where possible. And if there is a rising tide of opposition, that the applicants understand why this is and try to amend their proposals to take account of any concerns that are in the local area.
Yeah, I could not agree with my honourable friend more. He says it far more eloquently than I ever could. Consultation is key, and good businesses like Low Carbon here are getting caught in the mix of other people that are riding roughshod over local people, and consultation is not happening. We've also got a situation where big solar farms are coming in and there's no compensation to local areas like there is with wind and like there is with other developments. I will give way. Thank you.
I have to tell her that I'm grateful for her giving way and for her contribution to this debate. To tell her that my experience of these things is quite different from hers. As both Energy Minister and as local MP, I didn't see friendly local energy companies that wanted to engage the local community. I saw profit-hungry, greedy, big firms who didn't give a damn for what the local people felt. So let's be frank about these kind of businesses. They're less interested in energy than they are in money.
Listen,
Bailey.
I think, and it is important, I thank the honourable member for his intervention, incredibly experienced local MP with ministerial experience as well in this field. What I point to, sadly our experience on the ground with a lot of the applications has been big applications, big companies not listening to local people. But what I do have is a company who I've found, I've gone through what they do and the steps they take, and I think it is important for everybody to say that these companies do exist and they're the ones that should be winning out. And I have a local area at the moment that is under threat of an application, and it's a huge potential solar farm with 2 tenant farmers in the middle. You know, these are people, tenant farms are absolutely like gold dust. It's really difficult for any of us to find them for our constituent farmers, and yet they are going to lose their livelihoods, their homes, for landowners and big property developers who couldn't care a jot about anything, and food security getting muddled in the mix. So, but I do want to say the facts of what we can achieve with good companies, with sensitively done, with working with communities, with solar farms, it is possible to do. And I think it would be remiss of me to just be completely down on these things, but I am incredibly worried. Now, I think the ministers have said that the rules should be changed to protect agricultural land in relation to solar farms. I believe that government needs to define the protections for land used in food protection to make it easier for communities to decide whether a solar farm application is the right thing to do while considering the long-term food security issues for the UK. And I give credit to the Honourable Member for Buckingham, who's done an amazing amount of work and set down amendments that I know the government has looked at carefully. Yet such changes will need to go hand in hand with changes to the planning rules about rooftop solar, or the massive farms will always go to fill the gaps. So I want to hear from the Minister whether he can give us an update on the issue of solar farms to reassure local people that even though local planning is erratic and government is taking steps to protect agricultural land, what is happening? When are we going to feel it on the ground? When are we going to feel those protections that we're telling are coming? Now, I was going to speak about national barriers. I've had some really amazing briefings, and thanks to people that are sending them in, CEN and Renewables UK. But I'm going to defer to the Right Honourable Member for Witham, who speaks for me on a number of the things that she's concerned about, and we do want to see government looking more lively on the national grid. I know the new Secretary of State said at an Onward conference event that she had 99 problems and they're all the national grid, and I know that she's working really hard on it, but again, we need to see the detail. Now, to finalise, and I again thank you all for your indulgence, but this matters so much to Stroud constituents, and I have two tiny little children who cause me chaos before I even get here. So this is a lovely calm existence for me, even before all of you. But when I look at my baby and I think about the world that she's growing up in, the desire to make sure that we are protecting nature and the environment runs really deep. Many parents I know feel the same. I get really angry with all the abuse that I get from eco-campaigners saying that I don't care. I do care. I care every day about this. But I make no apologies for taking a practical approach to net zero. I always have. I can see that the Prime Minister is trying to do the same thing in the face of great opposition. And I've always picked organisations and local businesses, people like WWT Slimbridge or businesses like Borgorn, Affinia. I'm about to do a Prime Minister's question on hydrogen combustion engines. I work with those people to run campaigns that will make a difference because they're the ones I think I can carry influence in rather than virtue signalling or shouting into an echo chamber on Twitter. This is why I desperately want to help businesses like B Solar and Big Solar Co-op. They're smart people taking a smart approach to difficult issues. And the government and local government should be removing barriers that do not need to be there. My constituents and I will work on whatever is necessary to make this happen, but we, as I said, cannot keep banging our heads against a brick wall because we are answerable to people who are coming to us saying, we want these things in our houses, but it's just not happening. I'm very pleased to see the Minister in his place and responding to this. He's got so much experience in his own personal career, and I look forward to hearing what he and all our colleagues today has to say. Thank you. Thank you.